when we are actually configuring about the uh, SQL developer and all. So still you're confused like where you have to execute the queries and all. So before we get started, I would like to clear all your questions in terms of how to connect to the database and how you handle the execution of the queries and all those. So basically, yeah, whatever the questions that you have related to the the installations and everything, probably you can just discuss them later by reaching out to the admin team. So yesterday we have spent a time in installing the things, so make sure that it's you follow with them and then get your installations done after the class. So see, basically for executing the SQL queries or viewing the data from SQL, so it's something that which you have to do it from the SQL developer or from the SQL plus. So that is what we have seen in the introduction class. So when we talk about either SQL plus or you have to use an SQL developer to connect to the database. So basically you have to use this to connect. So how can we now we are not using SQL plus because we are not installing any Oracle client on your machines. So only the way that you connect to the database which is there in Bangalore is only through the SQL developer. So what we are trying to do is you're accessing the SQL developer, database which is present in one of the server at our premises. So you're accessing this one. See, basically to access this database, you need to be in our network to access this. Unless you are in our network, you cannot access this because this is not available on a public domain in the internet. So in order to make you to connect to our network, that is the reason why we have set up the VPN connection. So if you use that VPN connection, what so happens is that as soon as you connect to the VPN, it makes you to connect to our database or our network. So from there, you're using an SQL to connect it. So now once you connect to the VPN, then only your SQL developer will work. In the sense, when you try to connect to the database, it will help you to connect to the database. If your VPN connection is not working, then it is something that means you cannot work for that day, whatever the reason that might be. So if the VPN connection, whatever is there, if it is not working, then you cannot work it. So even when you go to the real-time project also, what so happens is that you'll be assigned with a private VPN connection. It's a secured VPN connection. You'll have a username and password. You need to enter that username and password. Then it will take you to connect to the client network or the customer network. And then you need to start using it. Unless your VPN connection is connected, you cannot use any of. See, it is not only with SQL now, even when you go to the Informatica also, unless your VPN connection is active, you cannot work with Informatica also even. So let's say this is your ORCL is your database and all the connections that we have shared is HR is a password and the database name is ORCL. And the host name that you have to use is 192.168.81 and the port which you have to use is a 1521. So this is a port details that you have to use to connect to the VPN and then start executing your queries on the VPN connection. On the Oracle database is basically what I'm trying to say. So unless this setup is done, you cannot practice the Oracle. And for setting up the VPN connection also, I've already forwarded you the document, and that document clearly explains you that how you have to configure the VPN connection. It's only that you don't have a username and password. Whenever you're stuck with username and password, you just call the admin team. They'll confirm you the username password over the phone, and you can use that username and password and configure the VPN connection. See, two things that you have to remember: unless your VPN connection is connected, unless your VPN connection is connected, you cannot do anything. Okay, so always make sure that the VPN connection is in the connection status, And in case if you want to make sure, you can always go to your command prompt and always ping this 192.168.1.81. So this is the server where you have all the things. Suppose let's say if I want to check whether my VPN connection is active or not, so what you can do is you can go here and then ping this one and then execute it. You should get the response like this once you connect to the VPN. If you're getting a response something like this, then only you will be able to connect to our network and then start executing the queries, right? So I hope now I have cleared most of your questions in terms of how you can execute the queries and all those things. So SQL Developer is one tool which helps you to do that. Let's say now the next one to proceed is that how to create a connection in the SQL Developer. See, this is not going to be even a tougher part. So when you go to the when you go to the real time, you need to create a connection. So nobody else will create a connection for you, not admin team. Okay. So all of you can hear me, right? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
We can hear you. We can.
Yes.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, let me just, one second, there are some audio issues for the people. All right. So now once again I'm going to show you the connection, how we can actually create a connection using this. So when I go here, let's say you need to click on plus connection and enter the connection name as SQL, and the username that you're going to use is a HR, and the password that you're going to use is also a HR. And you can save the password for future. I mean, like, you don't need to enter every time you connect to this. So enter this, and the service name is going to be an ORCL, and the host name what you use is 192.168.1.81, and try to test this. It will say that it's success. That means I'm able to connect to the database, that ORCL database, ORCL database to do that. So now when you execute this says success, that means you're connected to the database. So save it. Now I have created the SQL connection. So created an SQL connection, and till yesterday what we have learned is that, yeah, can keep all of you on the mute, please. Don't unmute yourself. Okay. So till yesterday what we have learned is some kind of functions like character functions and then the number functions that we have seen in the SQL. So basically today we'll talk about how we can use the other type of functions such as date functions and then the general functions that we check it. So as we have seen in the previous class also, we have you can perform the arithmetic operations on the dates. So basically you need to know the system date and time. So how do you get the system date and time? Let's say you have something called as select sysdate, let's say from dual. So when you try to execute the sysdate, it basically gives you what is the current date and time. So what is today's date and time? General representation of date in the Oracle is that you'll have, it is in the format of ddmon-yy format, ddmon-yy. So, but whenever you query the system date from the database, it will not only gives you the date, it will also give you the time till seconds. Basically time in the sense you'll have hours, minutes, and then the seconds, but it doesn't carry the microseconds. It doesn't carry the microseconds. Suppose if I want to know whether according to the system date and time is a AM or a PM. So basically you need to change the format of the date. So alter session, let's say alter session. So you have something called as a set NLS date format. NLS date format is equal to, you need to change the date format for that session, then you can basically understand the what type of date format that you have, HH24 MI and SS. So try to execute it. So try to query that. So now see whether it is giving you the time until the seconds or not. 1 second. So if you see this, even if you want to know the AM or PM, you can first alter the session date format, then only you can, okay, so instead of 24 you need to give it as a 12 because you are using a AM and PM. So when you try to execute this, the session is altered. Okay, so now you have the session which is altered. Now you can check what is the current date and time. So this will give you the current date and time, 23rd Jan according to the IST. 7:25 is the time what is according to the IST. So sysdate will give you the current date as well as a time regarding to that, right? So let's move on with the next type of functions. Basically you can perform the arithmetic operators on the functions. So which mean to say, let's say you have, I can add a number of days. So if you add number of days to the existing date, so NLS is a national language set. So that is a default format that you have to give. So that's why it says that as a NLS. So all the database settings will be abide by the NLS formats. So that's why you need to give that NLS date format. So when you say that date plus number of days will always give you the date. When you say date minus number of days, so it will always give you the again date. So you can add the date, you can add the number of days to the existing date, and also you can add the, you can subtract the date from the existing date. Suppose let's say if you would like to, if I add something like today is 23rd, what happens if I add 7 days to the existing date from dual? So when you try to execute it, obviously give you the 30 Jan 2015 because today is 23rd plus 7 from the dual table. So likewise you can perform the arithmetic operations on the date columns. Now if you remember the employee table structure, right? So if you see the employee table structure, you have something called as a hire date. So when you look at this hire date column, it's a date field, right? So now it is nothing but the when the employee has joined the organization, that date you are keeping it. So let me try to check now. I want to calculate the experience of the employees in terms of days. So how do you use it? Select, let's say last name, comma salary, comma hire date, and I want to calculate the employee experience in terms of months. So how do you calculate? Let's say sysdate minus hire date, sysdate minus hire date. This will give you the number of days between the two dates. So divided by 7. So what it will give you? It will give you the employee experience in terms of weeks. So experience in weeks. So experience in weeks from what is the table from which you want to read the data? From employees. So try to execute this. It will give you now the employee experience in weeks. Basically, when you subtract the system date minus hire date, what it gives you? It will give you the experience in terms of days. Let's say some 2000 days, 300 days, something like that. And when you divide it by 7, this will give you the employee experience in weeks. Employee experience in weeks. So this is how we can perform the subtraction operation. So see, on the date you cannot perform the multiplication operation and the division operation. Only the addition and subtraction is possible using the on the date columns, right? So let's discuss about the another some more functions about the date. So next function is your months between function. So months between function is basically takes 2 dates as an input. Let's say date 1 and date 2. It will compare both the dates and it will give you the number of months between the 2 dates. Number of months between the 2 dates. Number of months between the 2 dates. So this way it will give you. So how this will work? Let's say if I want to calculate the employee experience in terms of months. So here we calculated employee experience in terms of weeks. If I want to calculate employee experience in terms of months, so how do we do that? So let me write the query. Same query I'm going to use, but this time with the months between. So here I'm going to pass the months between function. So sysdate comma hire date. When you pass, what it gives you? It is taking 2 dates. I'm passing the system date as well as a hire date. If I pass, it will give you experience in terms of weeks. So this will give you experience in terms of months. So when you try to execute, this will give you employee experience in months. So 91 months, 84 months, 136 months. Likewise, you will employee experience in months, right? So what about the next one? Next function is your add months function. Add months function. So add months function takes the 2 arguments. One is a date and the next one is an integer value. So it's basically integer value, it will take it. Let's say it will add the number of months to the existing date. So if I use this, select last name comma hire date, last name comma hire date, comma, let's say if I want to add 2 months to the hire date. So assume that, let's say you have a requirement when they are capturing the hire date column. So what they have done is they have actually taken the previous 2 months date for some reason, and you want to increase the employee experience. I mean, you want to update the employee experience hire date column by increasing the 2 months. So how would you do that? Let's say add months, and this is a date column. Let's say I want to add 2 months to the hire date column. So let's say new hire date. I call this as a new hire date. Okay. From what is the table name? Table name is going to be the, let's say, employees table. So when you try and execute, so this will give you the complete hire date. So 21 June 2007. So what happens if you add 2 months, July and August? So that's why it has given you as a 21st August and 13 Jan 2008. So if you add 2 months to this, it is nothing but a 13 March 2008. So likewise, you can add this thing. And the next one to go with is the next day function. So how do you use a next day function? Basically, the next day function will give you the, when does a next day happens. Let's say if I want to identify when is the next Sunday, or if I want to understand when is the next Friday. So all those things can be determined by using a next day function. Let's say when you use next day function, it will take the date as well as a day, which day you want to identify, whether you want to identify the next Sunday, next Monday, next Tuesday, all those. So if I determine, let me just use this with a system date so that it will be easier for us to understand. So when you go to next day, let's say the date function is system date. So you have something called as a sysdate. And I want to identify when does the next Sunday comes. So just pass the Sunday to this. Just pass the Sunday to this. And from, let's say, what is a table? Dual table. So when you try to execute this, so this will give you the date as 25th Jan 2015, 25th Jan 2015 and 7:35. It's basically we are having a Sunday on the 25th of this month. So this is how you can determine. Let's say when you want to understand when does the next Monday comes. So it's pretty easy. So just pass, instead of Sunday, you just pass Monday in using this. So try to use this. It will give you the 26th Jan is the next Monday at when it will give you. So that is more about the next day function. And another function that you have is a last day function. So what do you mean by this last day? Let's say the date column. So when you use a last day function with a date column, so it's basically gives you the last day of the month. So if I want to know let me just apply this function on top of a higher date column and see whether it is giving me the last day of the month or not. So higher underscore date from, let's say, employees table, because an employees table. So try to execute this. So you have 21st June 2007 is a higher date, and if you see last day of the June is 30, and if you see here 17th Feb 2004, it is a leap year, so it has given you the 29th Feb 2004 as a last day of the month. So this is how you can use the last day and the next day and the months between functions. So any questions, probably you can quickly ping here. I'll wait for a minute to hear your questions in case if you have any, and else we can move on with the other type of general functions. I mean conversion functions basically. All right then. When you talk about the conversion functions, it's basically why do you need a conversion functions, or what is the use of them here? Okay, see, basically when you talk about the different data types, you have a character data, you have a date data type, and you have a number data type and all. So I can represent the date in the format of character also, or I can represent the date in the character format. So now what I can do is, suppose in case whenever you want to convert the character date to the date data type, or whenever you want to convert the number to the character data type, always we will use the conversion functions. So what is that? Okay, so is my voice is breaking for everyone, or can you confirm me if the voice is breaking? No. Okay, I think it's a problem at your end. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about the conversion functions, how we use the conversion functions. We have basically three things. So one is a to-char function which converts date to the character, and also to-char can be used in two ways, and it will also converts um, date to the character, as well as it will also converts the number to the character. It will also converts the number to the character. This is how which can be used. So this way we can check which converts the date to the character. See, so far whenever we talked about the date format, always the date is represented in dd mon yyyy format. dd mon yy format. So suppose if I have to extract only the year from it, or if I have to extract only the month, or if I have to extract only the day, how could I do that? That can be achieved by using a to-char function. So let's say now I want to extract only the year. So how it works? Select, let's say, to-char of let's use it against the hire date column. So hire date, let's say the to-char of I want to extract the year. When you say YYY, it will give you the 4-digit year. It's basically, if you use YYY, it will give you 2004, 2006. Likewise, it will give you the, if you use only YY, it will give you the last 2 digits of the year. Let's say if I want to spell the complete year, if I have to spell the words complete year in words, let's say 2013, 2014, 2015, like that, that can be achieved by using a year column. So if you use YEAR format, it will spell the complete year in words. From, let's say, hire date column is part of employees table. So try and execute. So this will give you the format of the date, and this will give you the to-char of hire date comma year. So this way you can convert the number, year to only to the extract the year. Suppose, let's say, if I want to know, I have given you a query. Let's say I want to understand employees who are hired in 2008 year. Whether employee hire date is like, which is from January 2001 to this. So how do you hire? I want to find out only the 2008 employees. So I can write the query here saying that where to-char of this is equal to 2006, or let's say 2006. Okay. So when you try and execute, it basically gives you the employees who are hired in a 2006 year. So this is how you can use the to-char function here to extract only the year column from it, in using this. And similarly, if you have to extract the month attributes, so how would you do that? So same way, if you want to extract the month and all, let's say to-char of it will give you the digit format 01 to 12, 01, 02, something like that. If you use MON, it will give you the short form of the month, something like JAN, FEB, first 3 letters of the month. And let's say if you use a full format, to-char of hire date, and let's say which you have it as MONTH, month from employees. So try to execute it. So if you see, You have June, January, September and all those. So all these months which you have present. So suppose, let's say, if I want to know how many employees are hired in the month of December, that is my query. If I have to understand how many number of employees who are, or let's say I need to find out the list of all the employees who are hired in month December. So it's basically how you can write. So you can write the condition as where to care of month, this is equal to December, DESMBER. So when you try to execute this, this will give me the list of, there is no one who are hired in December. Probably let's try to use January month and try to see how many employees are existing in this. Oops, I think there's something wrong with this. So let me just
I think you should use only MON.
no, this is a full month I'm giving, right? It should give me the data. For some reason it is not giving me. Okay, so I think maybe the
it should give the result for this. Yeah
now this is what is about the, it is giving me for a September month. So how the month is being derived, and according to that it is giving me the list of employees who are hired in the September. So similarly, the way how you have extracted the year and month, you can also use the what column, that is your days. So if you use DD, it will give you the day of the month. If you use DDD, it will give you the day of the year. Basically this value will vary from 1 to 365 or 366 depending upon the leap year. And if you say D, it will give you the day of the week. It basically changes from 1 to 7. So 1 being the Sunday, Monday, like that. So 2 is Monday. So likewise it will give you the day of the week. And if you want to know even the to care of the week, let's say even to care of which week in a month, you might have the different weeks, maybe 4 to 5, 4 weeks. So when you try and execute, so this will give you, probably by using a system date it will be easier for us to determine. So let's use this query with a system date. So sysdate, and this is sysdate, and this is also sysdate, and then this. So try to execute this. So this will give you, today is 23rd. Okay, it should be dual. It should be dual. So when you try and execute, let's say system date is 23rd Jan 2015, and this is 23. Let's say you have 023 is it's basically, since it is January 2015, it is giving you the day as 23 because it is not the second month, right? It's the first month only. So today is basically the Friday according to the IST. That's why it is giving us 6. I said Sunday is 1, Monday is 2, Tuesday is 3, Wednesday 4, 5, and Friday is 6. That's why it is giving you as a 6. And when you say week, it basically calculating it's as a 4th week. So what it gives you is, it will give you the list of week number where it is in this. So this is how you can use a toChar function to extract the year columns. So year columns, date columns, and the month columns using that. So basically you can even extract the, we cannot use the alias in the where clause. So alias can be used only for a tables and then the columns what you have. You cannot use it for this one. So how do you start using the next things? Let's take a look at the next functions. So you can also fetch the, suppose let's say basically I want to display the hire date in this format. So if the employee is hired on the 17th of September, so I want to give 17 off, I want to display something like this. I want to display the 17th of September, so and so year, let's say 2015 or 2014. I have to display the hire date in this format. So how do you use it? Let's say select, and you have a last name, and you also need a hire date column. Let's say I want to display this hire date, and I want to display this. If you have to get the date in this format, which format you should use? DD. So if you have to get in this format will be month, and this is YYY. So how do you get this? Let's say to care of sysdate, and you have something called as a DD of, let's say I would like to get the month, so you can use a month, and let's say you want to get a year, and that is why you can use a year. See, what I'm trying to show you in this example is that you can also combine the different formats in the single to-char function. It is not that it will extract only the month or it will extract only the day. By using this, you can also do this. So when you try to see this, so this will give you the 23rd of January 2015. For everything it is giving the same thing. Okay, let me just change this. From the system date, I have to go back to the hire date to do this. So 25th of the June. So if you see, there are some additional spaces which have been included. So there is something called as a format FM. FM is a format specifier. If you use this FM, it will remove the extra added spaces. Now see here, there is only one space. There is no extra spaces which is there. FM is a format specifier which will remove the spaces, from that. So this way you can use the to-char function with the dates, right? Any questions? You can ping me here quickly. So if you ping me here, it will be easier. I can quickly answer that. Make sure that you are on the mute, please. There is some noise coming up. I don't know. Okay. Next one is we are going to talk about the to-char function with the numbers. To-char function with the numbers. Okay. So how are we going to use to-char function with the numbers? So let me just suppose, let's say I have a salary column, and I want to use that salary in this format. Let's say if the employee is receiving 5,000, I want to display the salary as 5,000 dollars. So this way I have to display. So if you say number, it is only contains a digits, right? But I need a comma in between, and I also want to display the currency symbol that as a dollar. So how would you do that? Let's try to use it. Let's say select last name, comma salary, and if you use a to-char function with, let's say I want to display the salary in this format. So whenever you use it, 9 represents a digit. Whenever you want to display the dollar symbol, you need to provide the format as a dollar. And I want to separate the salary in this format. Even if you want to display the decimals, you can use decimals. Here in the format what we have given here, 9 represents a digit, dot represents a decimal, and dollar represents a dollar symbol. So it will basically separate your hundreds, thousands. So if the salary is 1 lakh or 100k, so it will just represent it as 100,000. So likewise it will display. Now let's try to use it with the employees table and check how we can use it. So when you try to execute it, so this will give the salary as 2,600 and 4,400, and similarly the 5,800, and then the 2,700 likewise. So it will display the character in the number format in using this. So let's move on with the next one. Basically is about your to underscore date and the to underscore number. So what is the use of these functions as well? See, basically the to underscore date, which converts the character date to the date data type. It converts character to the date data type, so which it is there. So how do you convert date? So it's basically that to underscore date function anyway we'll extensively use in most of the examples in the Informatica Power Center, but anyway we'll just see that how it works. It basically converts the character date to the date data type. Let's say if I have a date in the character column and which is representing something like this, 15th December 2014, or let's consider this as a 15th is a day and 12 is a month, and you have a year as a 2015. Okay, let's call it as 2015 itself, and the date is in this format. I want to convert this into the date format. So let's say if you use it, so dd/mm/YYY, that is a format that what we have from, let's say, dual table. So when you try to execute this, so this is converting into the date format. Basically when you are using a to underscore date function, the format of the date which you are passing as an input to this function and the format that you have specified should be same. So if here it is dd/mmyy, you have to represent dd/mmyy. If it is, let's say, dd-monyy, -mon-yy, you have to represent dd-mon-yy. So if you see, it is basically converting the character to the date data type in using this. So this is another function what we have. This is another function what we have. So that is more about the to underscore date, and the next thing is about the to underscore number. To underscore number, you're going to convert the character to the number format. Character to number format. So closely observe here. Let's try to take this format, whatever is being represented. Okay, so I have the format which is being represented. This is like a character, right? Because you have a dollar symbol, you have a comma symbol which is to that. So definitely that represents a character format. So let me just take this one, to underscore number. See, observe the input what we are passing and observe the output what the query is giving. So then it will be easier for you to understand. So when you say I'm passing dollar 2,600, which this is a character, so I'm passing it in the single quotes. So what is the format of it? So you're representing a dollar symbol, right? You're representing a dollar symbol, and when you say in this I have a salary, something is in this format. Let's say this is what is the format of my character what it is being displayed. You're basically separating the details here from dual. So when you try to execute, see here I have a dollar symbol, comma, decimals and everything, but basically when it comes to the number format, it is completely removed the comma and it is completely removed the dollar symbol as well. So 2 underscore number is basically converting the character to the number format which you have. So when you have such extra characters like dollar and all, it is easy to convert them by using a 2 underscore number. All right. So we have a question here. What is the need of 2 underscore date function? So it is giving you as is what you have actually kept. So when you look at it, am I passing the timestamp here in my date? But if you see, since my date format is this, it is also appended the 12 AM as a timestamp. And this, because why it is appended? Because it is basically in the date format. And you are passing the date format as DDMMYYY format, but what format of the date I am getting here? It is basically giving me the 15th December. See, 2 underscore date function is basically helps you to, whenever you have any date which is stored in the character format and you want to change that into the date data type, we will use a 2 underscore date function. So anyway, maybe at this point of time it might not be completely 100% clear to you. So we will start using those functions when we go to the Informatica Power Center again. So that time you'll come to know why we need a 2 date function to handle that. All right. So this is another functions which we have. Right. So any questions on the date functions and the conversion functions so far? Okay. So we have I don't know. See, we did understand in the last classes what is a dual table. Dual table is a table which owned by the sys user, and it helps you to perform some calculations. So in order to, since I'm passing only the number here, that's why I'm referring the dual table. If you're passing the column, you can pass the column name, and then from that table you can retrieve the data. So to make it simple, understand the functions in a simple way, so I'm basically using the dual table to give you the different examples here. All right. So next functions which we are going to talk about is the general functions. Right. So we have few important functions here which we need to know, NVL as well as an NVL2 function. So how the NVL function works and how the NVL2 function works. So to start with the NVL function, basically when we discussed about the null values, right? So when we discussed about the commission percentage and all, which is having a null value. So how can I actually default it to the another value, or how can I replace the null value with another? So first let me recall what do you mean by the null here. So select last name, let's say salary, and I want a commission percentage, and let's say I'm calculating a monthly salary of an employee, a monthly commission of an employee basically. So when you say monthly commission, it's nothing but the salary into commission percentage from, let's say, from which table these columns are available, employees table. So try to execute. We know that whenever you perform the arithmetic operations on the null value, it will be evaluated as a null. But basic thing is that when for this month you have decided, depending upon the performance of the employee, you have decided to give the commission to everybody, not only to the employees who are eligible for the commission. You have decided to give to all the employees who are not eligible for the commission also. Now I want to calculate the monthly commission. Your finance guy actually asked you to generate a report. Okay, if I give 10% of the commission to everyone, what will be the individual commission of an employee which I have to pay for this month? That you need to calculate. So they're giving 10% commission, but if you see, commission percentage is not defined over here. So I want to replace this null value with some default value. So how this works? So when you say NVL of commission percentage, let's say I want to give the 0.1 as a default value, what it is there. So when you try to execute, what happens is that wherever it is null, that value will be replaced by 0.1. What happens if you have a value in this column? Then basically it will not be replaced. It will be do that. So in order to calculate the monthly commission, so I'm giving the NVL function here. Basically the NVL function will convert the null values to the default value. See here, you had a null value here for this employee, and that commission is being replaced by 0.1. So if you say 2,600 into 0.1, commission is $260 and $650, and then likewise so on. I don't know why it is null here. Basically I think the salary is null there. Why it is coming as a null? Because your salary itself is null for this employee. Okay, that's anyway, ignore that. So NVL is a function which replaces the null value by the default value, which replaces the null value by default value. So that is the use of NVL function. So when you try to use, whenever you are replacing the default value, right, the data type of the default value should be same as your column data type. Okay, so data type of default value, data type of a default value should be same as column data type. So what I'm trying to say here is, suppose if you are using the NVL against the hire date column, and the value which you are replacing should be a date, it cannot be a number or a character, so that you have to take care. So when you say yes, you can replace a null value with a 0, yes, definitely, it is not any default value. See, let's say you want to give a 0 commission, 0% of the commission to the employees. Any default value you can use it. Let's say if I have to use with a 0 and here also with 0, definitely your commission will be calculated as a 0 only. So this is how it works. So you can use with the 0 or even without any default value. So that is one thing. So hire date, since it is a date column, so you need to replace that with a date. Since it is a job ID column, you need to replace that with a character. So that is the use of your this thing. And there is an additional extension to the NVL function, and another function that you have is a NVL2 function. NVL2. So basically NVL means if it is a null value, it replaces that. So I want to find out now NVL2, it will take the column name. If it is not null, it will give you value 1. If it is null, it will give you value 2. So if you see here, when the commission percentage is not null, then it will return value 1, else value 2. Let's say I want to identify how many employees are receiving both salary and the commission, or I want to identify how many employees who are receiving only commission. Okay, so how would you handle it? So when you try to use select last name, salary, commission percentage, let's say you have this as NVL2 of commission percentage. So if the commission percentage is null, means Not null means they are receiving both salary plus commission, both they are receiving. If they are receiving only the commission, salary means commission percentage is null means they are receiving only salary. If it is salary plus commission, that means they are receiving both of them. If from the employees table, so when you try to use this, so try to execute this value, so it is giving you the salary column. Since because it is null, go back here, since it is not null, it is giving you the salary plus commission. So how it works, if the column value is not null, it will return value 1. If the column value is null, it will return value 2. So likewise, you can access the now you can use the NVL function and all. So the next set of functions that we have is a so whenever, if you have a idea about the programming languages, so whenever you want to perform the if then else statements, like say I want to implement if this is true, do this, else do this. How can you implement if then else statement in a SQL? So there are two functions which we use with the if then else statements. So one is with a decode function and another is a case. So it's basically, it's very important. These functions are extensively used across the different examples. So you need to concentrate here. And we'll also understand the difference, why we need a decode and what is basically the difference between the case one and the decode. So basically now I want to create a condition. If employee is IT programmer, I want to give them the 20% hike. If an employee is a sales manager, I want to give them the 30% hike. If employee does not belongs to any of those jobs, I want to give them the default hike of 5%. So how could I handle that? Basically, now your finance team has actually asked you to calculate the incremental salary. If I give the hike, what will be the incremental salary of each employee? So how do you calculate? So basically, if you use a decode function, it performs the equal comparison. So based on the job ID. So how do you use it? Let me write directly the query here. So select, let's say the last name. You are basically giving the increment based on the job ID. So job ID, salary, and let's say decode of what do you call as job ID column. And you have, if the job ID is IT programmer, what is the hike? So if it is equal to IT programmer, what you have to do, it is 20% hike. That means 1.2 into salary. If it is equal to sales manager, what is the hike? I want to give them the 30% hike. So 1.3 into salary. If job ID is equal to IT programmer, you are using 1.2% of the salary. If the job ID is equal to sales manager, 1.3. Else I'm going to give the 1.05. That's nothing but a default hike. So how this gets executed, you need to understand here. Okay, concentrate. So how it works is, first it will check whether job ID is IT programmer. If it is equal to this, then it will replace with this value. If it is equal to this, then it will replace with this value. If it is not equal to any of these, then it will go and give the default value. You can write n number of comparisons. So try to execute and see how we can write the decode here. So if you see, it is a sh underscore Clark is a default hike, right? So if you see 5%, they have got the $130 hike on a monthly basis. So here also 4,400, $220 hike, 5% of them. So this is with a decode. So whenever you want to perform if then else condition, how it works with a case. So let's say use a similar kind of a columns. So how do you use the case statement? So when you use case, when if it is equal to IT programmers and whose salary is greater than less than okay, let me just try to write it, where job ID is equal to IT programmer, and I want to even perform some logical operator also, and if the IT programmer's salary is greater than 6,000, then only I want to give them the 20% hike. If it is less than that, I don't want to give them. So how would you write? And salary is greater than $6,000. So in that case, then I'm going to give the 20% hike for these guys. Okay. So, and similarly, if the job ID is equal to let's say AD underscore VP, I mean vice president, or if the job ID is equal to sales manager, then I want to give them the 30% hike. So it's basically 1.3 into salary. Else, if it is not true with any of them, so it will give you 1.05 into salary and then end. So you need to close this. So it's nothing but your salary is called as an incremental salary here. So this way, incremental salary, you'll use it from, let's say, what is the table name? Employees table. So what is the difference between your decode statement and the case statement that you have observed here? What is different? So this is also working in the same way, and this is, let's say, when you go to IT programmers, okay, let me just sort the data based on, so we have this IT programmer. There is only one employee who is having a salary more than 6,000. So that's why for this employee 20%, for all these employees you got the salary as a 5% hike. So what is the difference between the decode and the case statement? Okay, so you can compare the multiple conditions, and at the same time in the decode you use only the equal comparison, isn't it? I don't have non-equal comparison, something like this. Suppose if I have to say that, okay, if the salary is greater than 6,000, give this much hike. That condition you cannot do. So decode is used for only for a equal comparison, and case is used for both equal as well as a non-equal comparison. So that is the main difference between the case statement and the decode statement. So you can try and do this. So this completes your set of queries for a third chapter. So complete list of queries have been completed. So we will discuss about the remaining fourth chapter tomorrow. We'll talk about how we are going to use the aggregate functions and how we can use basically the joins. How can we retrieve the data from multiple tables? So all those things we will do it. So we are actually lagging behind 1 day schedule. So we'll try to cover this up. So this is more about the third chapter, that is about the functions. So this way, if you have any questions related to today's class and even yesterday's class what we discussed, or if you have any issues in connecting to the in practicing the things, all those things you can bring it to our notice. We will help you out in case if you're finding a difficulty in practicing the things. Okay.
Karthik, I have a question. This is Ravi here. The question is on NVL. So if we use the NVL function, does the null values get updated in the table?
No.
Or
See,
the result?
yeah. See, when we talk about a select statement, Select statement is just only for a reading. It changes the value when it is retrieving the data. It doesn't changes in the database. In the database still you'll have a null value. It doesn't changes. So NVL function or any other function, when it comes to upper function or a lower function, when it is changing it, it is only changing for your result. It is not changing in the database. So, and also remember, select is only is used to read the data. It is not used to update the data. What happens if you don't use a rollback and commit? See, rollback and commit are used only for DML statements. So we haven't talked about the DML statements. DML statements we have discussed in the last class or before last class. You should use only with a insert, update, delete. You should not use with the select statements, or you should not use with the DDL statements like create and all. That cannot be used. So whoever has the issues with the VPN or any other thing, I'll give the admin number, so you can reach out to them only after the class, 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. We have already forwarded this document, Kranti, and I mean, you mean to say this queries? I already pinged you that in case if you want it, or basically let me just save this. Yeah, this document is already been sent to this, and I don't know, you can ping your email address in case if you have not received. We'll try to send you that. So this document is already been forwarded. I think I forwarded you, Kranti. You can check the PDF which I have sent you. So in the PDF itself you have all the PPTs and everything, and all those things have been kept in that only. So anyway, I'm even saving these queries. What do you mean by 1 and 3? I don't know. Please, when you're writing, where are the assignments? Okay. So I think
didn't get the movie, the lecture number 1 and 3.
oh,
You told us you
want
send the movie.
no, you want a recording, or you need a
Recording, yeah, recording. I record your lecture. You told us you.
Yeah, I'll send
I got
you.
only number 2.
Yeah, I'll send it you.
Okay, thank you.
See, you don't need a PPT at all. All you need is this Oracle 11G database SQL fundamentals. If you open this Oracle database 11G SQL fundamentals, everything is there in this only. So if you go by one, whatever the things that we are discussing here, everything is here only. So you have including the PPTs as well. So let's say if I go to some, let's say third chapter, right? So 60. So this is defining a column alias. So this is a PPT which is present. So I already shared it with you. And when it comes to the assignment, right? So when you complete, after the completion of the chapter, at the end of every chapter, so let me go on, show you the first one. So this is a practice lesson. So the practice lesson is on the 84 page. So when you go here, so the following SQL statement executes successfully. Select star from job grades, whether it works or not. Execute this statement and understand what is it. So this query has the 4 errors. So how are you going to handle it? So this one, and next one is about this. How are you going to write a query? So here your first task is to determine the structure of the department table and its contents. So how are you going to do that? And you need to determine the structure of employees table. So how are you going to do that? And here they have a query saying that HR department needs a query to display the all unique job codes from the employee table. Select distinct job ID from employees. So all these things, for every chapter you have this thing. um, to use it. Okay, so that's how you talk about the different things. So maybe in the